You signed up for a subscription at one price. Later, that price can change while the monthly billing continues. The company may disclose the new number without asking you to make the purchase decision all over again. Before we go any further, this video is for educational purposes only. It explores documented research on subscription pricing and consumer behavior. It is not financial advice. Always consult a qualified professional for your specific situation. Here is the starting point. A business can make the case that a higher price is fair. It can also announce a new price inside an existing recurring relationship and let the billing continue unless you cancel. The Federal Trade Commission defines a negative option as a term that lets a seller treat a customer's silence, or failure to act, as consent to be charged. A monthly subscription can place the next charge inside that structure. One path asks for a fresh yes. The other turns no action into continuation. The behavioral pull behind that structure appears clearly in research on defaults. In 2001, the economists Bridget Madrian and Dennis Shea published a study of retirement saving at a large American corporation. Before a change to the company's 401k plan, employees had to affirmatively elect to participate. After the change, new employees were enrolled automatically and immediately unless they opted out. The researchers report that none of the plan's economic features changed. The enrollment default did. The results were sharp. Participation was significantly higher under automatic enrollment. The contribution rate and saving behavior. A substantial fraction of automatically enrolled participants kept both defaults, even though very few employees hired before automatic enrollment had selected that particular combination. Madrian and Shea described the pattern as default behavior and said it appeared to result from both inertia and some employees treating the default as investment advice. The study did not measure subscription customers, but it demonstrated that an active choice and an automatic default can produce very different behavior even when the economic features stay the same. The comparison also clarifies what a default does. Under affirmative enrollment, taking no action produced non-participation. Under automatic enrollment, taking no action produced participation at the company's chosen contribution rate and allocation. Employees could still opt out, but the action burden had reversed direction. The researchers did not show that the defaults were ideal for every employee. They showed that the company's choice of default had a strong influence on the outcome. That matters here because the question is not whether a customer still has options. And the customer does nothing. Subscription pricing is built to sit inside that same gap. Think about what happens on either end of a recurring subscription. Enrollment creates the billing relationship. Cancellation ends it. In 2024, the FTC tried to regulate the difference in effort between those two actions by requiring cancellation through the same medium used for enrollment and by barring an overly burdensome process. Those requirements do not prove that every company makes cancellation difficult. They do identify the asymmetry the regulator was trying to address. When recurring billing treats no action as continuation, a disclosed price increase can carry forward without a fresh purchase decision. The FTC's business guidance made that standard concrete. People had to be able to find the cancellation method quickly and easily, through the same medium they used to enroll. A seller could not require a live or virtual representative for cancellation if enrollment did not require one. Those were requirements of the later vacated federal rule, not a description of every subscription already in the market. They show exactly what the agency meant by making cancellation as easy as enrollment. Now watch that mechanism operate on real numbers, from a real company, on a real date. In January 2025, Netflix raised prices across multiple parts of its U.S. subscription lineup. The standard plan without ads went from $15.49 to $17.99 a month. The ad-supported standard plan went from $6.99 to $7.99. The premium plan went from $22.99 to $24.99. The extra member add-on went from $7.99 to $8.99, while the ad-supported version of that add-on held steady at $6.99. For price points increased in the same announcement, with increases ranging from $1 to $2.50. The count matters. 3 of the changed figures were plan prices, while the 4th was an extra member add-on. 2 increased by the same dollar amount, the ad-supported plan and Premium rose by $2, and Standard without ads rose by $2.50. The exact comparison is therefore 4 changed price points with increases from $1 to $2.50, not 4 different increase amounts. Netflix is one visible example, but the structure is not confined to streaming. The FTC lists automatic renewals and free-to-pay plans among the forms of negative option marketing. Its example of a free-to-pay plan is a free trial that automatically converts to a paid subscription. Same pricing or cancellation terms. What they share is narrower. Silence or failure to take affirmative action can allow the next charge to occur. Look at those same Netflix numbers a different way. The ad-free standard plan's increase works out to 16.14%, because $2.50 divided by $15.49 is 0.1614. The premium plan's increase was smaller by percentage. $2 divided by $22.99 is 8.7%. The dollar changes were not uniform, and neither were the percentage changes. A number that looks modest in dollars can look different when measured against the old monthly price. The other two increases fall between them. $1 divided by $6.99 is 14.31% for standard with ads. $1 divided by $7.99 is 12.52% for the extra member add-on. The full percentage range was therefore 8.70 to 16.14%. That range describes the scale of the announced changes. It does not tell us how subscribers reacted, how many canceled, or how Netflix selected the amounts. Notice what the public numbers do and do not show. They show that Netflix did not apply one uniform dollar increase or one uniform percentage. They do not show how the company selected each amount, so they cannot support a claim about what any tier could supposedly absorb. Netflix's own help page says it emails members 1 month before a price increase and that, once a change is announced, its billing page says members are automatically charged once a month. The new charge can therefore enter an existing billing cycle unless the member changes the plan or cancels. Even the cancellation path needs careful wording. Netflix's current help page directs a member to the membership page, then to cancel, then to finish cancellation. If that option does not appear, the member may have to cancel through a payment partner. That is a documented process for this service, not proof that every subscription is difficult to get. About a universal one-click sign-up and a universal several-step exit would go beyond the evidence. This resembles the asymmetry Madrian and Shea documented in retirement savings. Continuation requires no new election, while changing course requires action. Their study does not tell us how many Netflix subscribers noticed an increase, why any one of them stayed, or whether they compared alternatives. It supports a narrower claim. Making continuation the default and making reconsideration active are behaviorally different structures. Disclosure and a fresh choice are not the same event. That gap between disclosure and actual reconsideration has drawn regulatory attention, and its recent history is worth tracing, because it shows how contested this exact mechanism has become. In October 2024, the Federal Trade Commission finalized what it called the click-to-cancel rule, an amendment to its existing negative option rule. The agency said the update would apply to almost all negative option programs in any medium. It required sellers to make cancellation as would halt charges. Most provisions were assigned a 2025 compliance deadline. It did not survive. On July 8, 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit vacated the rule after finding that the FTC had not followed a required rulemaking procedure. The court said that, because the process was procedurally insufficient, it did not need to address the petitioner's substantive challenges. The decision came 6 days before the deferred July 14 compliance deadline. On March 11, 2026, the FTC announced an advance notice of proposed rulemaking and asked the public whether it should amend the current negative option rule. The agency specifically listed adopting provisions of the vacated 2024 rule among the options under consideration. It also reported receiving more than 100,000 complaints in the previous 5 years about negative options and related practices. That does not predetermine what a new rule will say. It does show that the agency is still gathering evidence about enrollment, retention, and cancellation after the 2024 rule was vacated. That procedural label matters. An advance notice of proposed rulemaking is a request for information, not a final regulation. The FTC asked about the current marketplace, practices that deter cancellation, possible regulatory approaches, costs and benefits, and supporting studies or economic data. Saying that a replacement rule had already been written would overstate the record. What the March 2026 notice establishes is that the issue remained open and that provisions of the vacated rule were still among the options being considered. A word on what this does and does not mean. It does not mean every subscription price increase is predatory, and neither the default study nor the regulatory history proves bad faith by any company. What the evidence shows is narrower and more useful than a verdict on a single business. Negative option terms can make silence count as consent to another charge. Defaults can influence participation and the settings people retain. A disclosed price change can enter a recurring billing relationship without requiring the customer to make the purchase decision again. Here is the recurring billing system does not require a new purchase decision each month. That fact alone cannot tell us whether a particular customer reconsidered the service privately. It tells us that the system does not demand evidence of that reconsideration. A rising price does not have to defeat anyone's judgment. It can arrive inside a relationship where continuation is already the default. That is not a flaw in you. Research has documented the power of defaults for more than 2 decades. Negative option gap. Seen through that lens, easy enrollment and harder cancellation are not unrelated inconveniences. They determine which direction requires action and which direction does not. So here is a question worth leaving in the comments. Pull up your own subscriptions right now, and check the price against what you remember agreeing to. If it moved, ask yourself honestly whether you ever actually decided the new price was worth it, or whether you simply kept not deciding. I would genuinely like to read what you find. Different kind of default, the man in the suit behind the desk, telling you what to do with your money, and why you trust him more than the evidence about his incentives would justify. That is the authority bias, and it is where we go next.